Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring, and a little bit of bonus content. I don't normally produce videos on a Tuesday, but I felt I had to because Games Workshop has once again released a preview for Blackstone Fortress Ascension. They have been drip feeding this content through the week, which means every day I end up posting one of these little videos to share my thoughts on it. Today they have gone into the rules a little bit more, and I say a little bit, this really is a little bit, but they have shone a light on a few of the new mechanisms we can be enjoying when Ascension goes up for pre-order on the 29th of August. First of all, and probably the big new addition with this expansion, is they have talked a little bit about this rolling road format of exploring the Blackstone Fortress. I mentioned in an earlier video that it sounded like this was going to be a little bit more like the original Silver Tower. In Silver Tower you had a deck of exploration cards, you would put down the entrance to the map. When you got to a door, you would flip the exploration card, and then you would place whichever chamber was beyond that. If you got to T-junctions, you would split the deck, and gradually, as you explored further into the dungeon, the first tiles that you had explored would vanish, they would disappear, and if there were heroes on those tiles, then they would be removed from play. And I thought that this idea of a rolling road exploration sounded very much like that. And it does seem to be the case that it is very similar, although not exactly the same. Obviously, in a standard game of Blackstone Fortress, you have a deck of cards and you flip them and they're either challenges or combats, and if they're a challenge you just resolve them based on the text on the card most of the time, and if it's a combat you set up a map and you fight over the map and then move on. This time around, exploration is dealt with using a special deck of cards called Fragment Cards. Each of these cards looks a little bit like a combat card in that it has a small section of a map, but it has multiple entrances on the map and you randomly determine which is your entry point for your heroes. You then set up that map and you explore through it. When you get to one of the exits on the card, you will flip the next card and the map will unfold in that manner. The interesting thing being that as you explore and as you draw more fragment cards to assemble the next part of your journey, the original fragment that you started on becomes unstable. And then at the start of each event phase, you have to remove a tile from that unstable fragment. And if there are explorers on the tiles when they're removed, then they're taken out of action. And this is going to force you to keep running and gunning. You're going to have to keep moving because the map is unfurling before you and it's not waiting for you to keep up. You've just got to keep going. You can't really return to a maglev and then return to precipice. You have to keep going. That sounds to me like one of those situations where you're battling attrition. You're going to be picking up grievous wounds as you travel, but you have to keep going. You have to keep pushing on. There's no backing away, healing up and trying again. This is your one shot. You've got to do it. Pretty exciting stuff. And I do like this about Blackstone Fortress. Blackstone Fortress has had two large box expansions. It had Escalation and now Ascension. And in both of those large box expansions, they have provided new ways to explore the fortress. In the base game, you were using the deck of exploration cards with the combats and the challenges, and then in Escalation you had the map book where you were actually in a stable area of the fortress, so you could actually plot your map out, and you were using a book to reference where you were going, and that was really good fun. And now for Ascension, we have a different idea. Again, we've gone the other way. Rather than being able to map out where you're going, you just have to run for it, and you don't know where you're going, you don't know where the maglevs are, you can't get out, you just have to keep pushing on and hoping that you can get where you need to go before time runs out. The second thing that the preview talks about is, of course, the new Guardian drones. They are the centerpiece of this expansion, the two big miniatures. They've given us a rundown of their weapons. They have actually 3 different weapons. They have a Destroyer Pulse, which can only attack at range 2 or 3 and rolls 2d8. They have the Manipulator Limbs, which can only attack at range 1 but roll 2d12. And then they have Salvo Launchers, which can only attack at range 4+. They roll a single d12, but they ignore cover, and they will make an attack roll that ignores cover against each explorer in the same hex as the original target. So yeah, they're firing grenades across the board, so another reason to keep moving, to keep pressing forwards. They have a special commander ability which ramps up the threat level of the combat, so it starts at 3 rather than 0 where a combat with spindle drones would normally start. And of course, when you're using this expansion, you're actually using awakened spindle drones rather than the original spindle drones from the base game. The other thing they mentioned in the preview the other day was the introduction of hover drones, which are another type of enemy that we do not actually get miniatures for. And they've included the rules here for those hover drones, and it's now clear why we don't get miniatures for them, because they aren't exactly an enemy in their own right. They won't come out and attack you. They are more like a force field or a shield for the Guardian drones. Basically, when a Guardian drone makes a hover drone action, then you will place a hover drone token on the same hex as the Guardian drone. And then those drones will follow the Guardian drone around. Whenever an explorer that is 2 or more hexes away from the Guardian drone makes an attack, the attack has no effect and you instead remove the hover drones. And that's going to make the Guardian drones particularly difficult to take down, especially as they also have 18 wounds as standard. And this rule feels to me a little bit like it is an attempt to address one of the issues with the game, in that whenever they have introduced a big monster in the past, the dreaded Amble, the Ogrin, what tends to happen is you focus your fire on those guys from a distance. You hold back, get all your big guns out, and you just lay down aimed fire attacks at those big guys until they are taken out of play. This whole expansion seems to be effectively nullifying that particular strategy. You can't hold back, go into Overwatch and wait for the Guardians to approach because of the unstable nature of the fragments, and you can't shoot at long range against the Guardian drones because all you're going to be doing is taking down the hover drones. You need to press forwards. And it feels like this is a solid attempt to shake up some of those strategies, some of those ways that once you've played to this point, if you've been playing through the base game and all of the expansions, you've got quite a lot of strategies nailed down, certain techniques for resolving problems, and this feels a little bit like a way to redress the balance and force you to think a little bit more on your feet and perhaps change up your tactics for this final onslaught. Overall, it's looking pretty good. I'm excited about this one. I have to admit, I wasn't as keen on the Zote expansion, the Deadly Alliance expansion. It's probably my least favourite of all the expansions to date. So it's nice to see these previews for the final expansion, including some stuff that I think looks really interesting and stuff that I'm really excited about again. I'm hoping we're going to go out on a big bang with Blackstone Fortress, and this is going to be a really exciting expansion. It's certainly looking that way to me at the moment. But that's it from me for now. Thank you so much for listening. If you have enjoyed the video, please consider pressing the like button. If you have really enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I'll see you all again very soon. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.